So this is Euridite, eh?
It's nice.
Yeah, quiet.
Yeah, peaceful. No engine noise.
No creaking metal or blaring alarms.
I think I could get used to this.
You know, me too.
Hey, you want to go inside that atmosphere processor and see if we can find a TV to watch until Coolerbot gets here?
Oh God, of course I do. Hopefully there's a little outlet in there and I can use it to finally charge my Steam Deck. This baby's been dead for days.
Welcome to Crew Expendable. I am totally not a synth at all, Hallstrom.
And I am generic worshiper Rohrbacher.
And we're just a couple of dogs of perdition tearing our way through the alien universe.
Love it.
Yeah. You know what my backup one was?
I do want to know what your backup one was, yes.
We're just a couple of atmosphere processors filtering out the alien universe.
I mean, I don't want to say that one is better, but it's funnier to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking one of us was going to go with dog of perdition for our designation, but oh well.
Oh well.
We got to use it.
Yeah, we sure did.
Kenny, how's it going?
Just chilling. Finished eating a sandwich not too long ago. Sitting here, about to eat a brownie. I have some cream soda over there.
Holy shit! You just having the best night. I
got a whole spread going. Yeah,
I'm struggling to stay awake. I'm so tired. Look,
to be honest, yeah. I am too. We were talking before the show and you said that you only got like 4 hours of sleep.
Yep.
So did I. And we also had so much work at work today that I was not able to take my break.
Oh no.
So I was on my feet for the entire 8 hours straight, literally never even got a chance to sit down. Jesus. So I got home and went, yeah.
Well, we're recording this on a Tuesday evening. In fact, the very same Tuesday that I'm going to try to release this bad boy. So,
hopefully,
listeners, this is going to be maybe a little looser than normal. I don't think I'm going to be very tight with the editing because I just want to get this out the door. That doesn't mean we're like rushing through this, okay? Like we're still gonna dig into our topic of discussion, which is of course Alien Revival, the second arc from Marvel Comics. Specifically, issues 7, 8, and 9 of this Volume 1 run, the first half of the Revival storyline. There's a lot to talk about. We're not going to give it short shrift, but again, this is probably going to be a little bit looser than our average episode, which are already kind of loose anyway. So,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But before we jump into this, Kenny, you got to plug your hard drive stuff. You have to. I don't know if the folks out there know this, but our buddy Kenny here, co-captain of this podcast, is a writer.
I would not go so far as to say, listeners, that I am doing. I would not say that I am doing this under duress. Not quite that far, but I will say that this was not my idea to do this. I'll phrase it like that.
I did tell Kenny he had to plug this stuff, or I was going to do it for him. So
that is correct. For anyone out there that may not know, there is a website called The Hard Times. And The Hard Times is basically, imagine The Onion, but every article is about punk music, pretty much.
Sure. It's a good website.
Some years ago, they created a spin-off called Hard Drive, where it's The Hard Times, but every article is about video games.
Yes.
And they were since Hard Drive is a spin-off of Hard Times, by my understanding, they're both technically run by the same person. Like, the founder for both of them is the same and all that.
I thought Hard Drive's gone independent, haven't they?
Well, both of them have the same founder,
right?
And originally Hard Drive was like part of the Hard Times.
Yes.
But a couple of years ago, Hard Times was bought by somebody and Hard Drive was not part of the deal.
Not part of the
so
acquisition.
then they became two like legally distinct entities.
Gotcha.
But like just recently Hard Times announced that they were like back to being independent and they're not owned by anyone anymore.
Oh, good.
But I don't think they like re-merged after that happened. So technically it is still like a distinct thing, but like it started off as a spin-off of Hard Times.
Right.
And back like not several years ago, a few years ago, like late 2017, 2018, somewhere around there, I on a whim applied to be a writer for Hard Drive and got in.
Yeah.
And wrote a few articles for them. And then life started happening and I wasn't able to I tried writing articles, I tried pitching articles, and I went a whole bunch of them in a row without any of them getting accepted. And so I got kind of disheartened from it. And so I stopped doing it as much. And then eventually I stopped doing it at all. And I went just shy of 4 years without writing anything. And if my foreshadowing that I've been giving all of this time has not been heavy enough, the reason I'm mentioning it's been almost 4 years is because as of earlier today, as of this recording, I finally have a new article published on Hard Drive.
Hell yeah, you do. We're going to link that in the show description. Actually, I'm going to link your page on Hard Drive that has all of your published articles in one place.
It sure does. There aren't very many of them, and you'll notice a big gap between two of the articles. But.
Sure, but yeah, you do have I'm not going to read the headlines here. People, go read these for yourself. I've read all of the articles, and they're very funny. Kenny, this new one was great. What a clever idea, you know.
I mean, it didn't pick up on the mic because it was silent, but when you said that, I did actually start laughing to myself because, I mean, I don't want to go into detail about how like the editorial process of Hard Drive works, because that's not what we're here to talk about.
Sure.
But I will say that like over the course of all of the articles I've written, there have been varying levels of parts of it got rewritten by the editor or whatever. There is one article actually where like, no joke, the entire thing got rewritten to the point where the final product, there was literally only one joke in it that I actually wrote.
Yeah, that's I remember us talking about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's fine. But the reason I bring this up is because I actually, before I turned in my draft for this newest article, I screenshotted it so that I could compare my draft to the finished article to like see how much changed.
Yeah.
And like, no joke, it is like 99.9% exactly what I wrote.
Hell yeah, dude.
Like there are lines in the published article that when I wrote, I was like, I know for a fact this is going to get changed because this joke isn't even that good. He will definitely write a better joke here, and he just left it the way it was.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. Anyway, congratulations. You should be proud, and everybody listening to the show should go read Kenny's articles and drop some comments. This so we can get this one bizwork1.com. I am making $162 an hour telecommuting article off of here.
It took me like maybe an hour combined to write over the course of an evening, and I got 10 whole American dollars for it.
You're a professional, man.
I mean, I've been a professional. This is what, like the 5th article I think I've written or something like that.
$10 an hour though.
That's right, baby. I mean, that's less than I'm making at work, but I'm making it in my spare time. So, you know, hashtag always be grinding, baby.
There you go. Well, you want a new gig. I do know this guy who's making $162 an hour telecommuting.
And for real? For real?
Sure. His name is bizwork1.com.
Oh, dang.
And
send him my way.
Yeah. All you have to do is copy and open his username.
Oh, nice.
Sure.
Okay.
What the fuck? This is like the laziest spam comment I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. Wild. Anyway. Yeah, man. Let's get into Alien Revival.
Yeah, as strange as it may seem, that is not what we're here to talk about, because I will say, listeners, for all of you out there that haven't read the article yet, the article, and in fact, none of the articles I've written so far for Hard Drive are about Alien, so that's really not what we're here to talk about at all.
I just really wanted you to plug that. The listeners need to know. You know,
again, to reiterate, I'm not necessarily saying I'm against plugging it, but I will point out that it was Neal's idea to do it, not mine.
It was my idea. Yes, everyone. I insisted.
I mean, like, when he even said, we're going to plug it at the top of the show, I went, well, I mean, we don't need to, but then we did. So
yeah, I said, no, we are going to. I'm just preparing you. I got one other little piece of business here.
Right.
It's been a second since we've checked in with our Android roll call. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've added a few to the list. Okay. I added our boy Dayton. Okay. From Thaw. Dayton's on the list. I also added with an asterisk. I added Charlie from the annual.
All right.
And that
That's
would be
fair.
That would be our first C on the show, technically, because we haven't done Resurrection yet, right? But again, that is with an asterisk, because he is also possibly just would be filed under Ash, right?
Yeah, an Ash. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wanted to put something in that C column, and then I also added another bishop from Bloodlines and a second bishop from Bloodlines.
Have you added the one from this comic yet?
Not yet. I got the list open.
Okay.
If we get the twist, I'm not sure that we will. Okay, but if we get the twist that somebody who we thought was a human all along actually turned out to be a synthetic, because I mean, let's be real. How often are they going to use that twist in the Alien universe? Right? I don't think that's going to happen in this.
Apparently they use it more than you might suspect.
Okay. Well, sorry. I'm muting some notifications here. There we go. And now, and then back to the podcast, everyone. And that is staying in. But if we come across a synthetic in this, I'll be ready to go with the list. I don't know why I'm pretending I haven't read the comic. Obviously, I've read the comic, right? This isn't a read along.
It's not. That's correct.
Yeah. But let's jump into this bad boy. So, first a little background, right? Alien Bloodlines took place in the year the annual took place in the year 2020, right?
No, the comic, the Bloodlines took place in the year 2200.
2200, yes.
The annual took place in the year 2193.
Did my dumbass say 2020 twice? It probably did.
You did.
Guys,
yes, I wasn't going to say anything and just gloss over it, but now that you mentioned it, we have to talk about it.
Yeah, if I address it here, I don't have to edit it out later, so
fair enough.
It saves me some work on the back end. So 2200 was the Epsilon Station events we saw in Alien Bloodlines, where there were only two survivors, which were, of course, the Bishop synthetic and Danny. His name is Danny, right?
His name is Danny.
Yeah,
yes, Danny Cruz.
Yeah, Gabriel Cruz's son. Now we are in the year 2202. And we learned that the United Americas have annexed and colonized parts of space to terraform and inhabit. It has been a peaceful 2 years since the last reported Xenomorph incident. So nothing Xenomorph related has happened in 2 years.
This is a spoiler alert to the listeners, there are xenomorphs in this comic. And so what that means is that when they show up in this comic, this is the first time since Bloodlines 2 years ago that they've been seen.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So this story immediately starts with a ship called the UAS extrasolar vessel Heraclides.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give us your pronunciation. You're the Greek mythology.
Oh, I mean,
scholar.
you got it correct. It's Heraclides. That's how to pronounce it.
Okay.
You got it correct.
Are you a little? Is there? Not to just immediately start negging this comic book, but can we get away from the Greek references?
I mean, they do them a lot, and I don't want to say necessarily that I don't know why, but it's like thematically speaking,
Right.
I don't know what they're trying to say by constantly doing them over and over again.
I mean, I know why the Prometheus was called the Prometheus, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And I don't remember, but I know that there were reasons why all of the ships in Prometheus, Fire and Stone were also named after Greek mythology. You did a nice rundown on that episode, and I apologize for not retaining the information. I should go back and listen to our Prometheus, Fire and Stone episode tomorrow.
I mean, to be fair, I don't remember it either. So
well, maybe we should all go listen to it.
Yeah, everyone, including the listeners, go listen to that episode, and also go listen to all of our other episodes too.
Yeah, let's check them all out. It's like a shortcut of like, oh, let's just name it after something Greek, and now we're referencing a bunch of other stuff in the Alien universe. Kind of the way we have the Nostromo, right? And then we have the Sulaco, and those are both references to the Joseph Conrad novel Nostromo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got other Conrad references, right? We had a Conrad reference in Isolation, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, and just a bunch of other things, right? And so it's like you make a Conrad reference or you make a Greek mythology reference when it comes to the name of a ship, and that makes it an alien ship. And I don't know. I could just do with a little less of that. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's one of those things to me where like they do it enough where I'm like, it's just a name. This doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. So why not try to like branch out and like you said, it's always either one of those two things. And it's like, start mixing it up, baby. No reason not to.
It's like how like Kevin Smith is constantly referencing his own stuff in his other movies. Right? It's just like that.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
By the way, I don't know why I'm admitting this on a podcast. Watched Clerks 3 over the weekend. Bawled my eyes out. Yeah. Apparently I have a deep love of the original Clerks movie, and this really struck a chord with me for some reason. That's not this is not a recommendation to see that movie. It is just my personal experience.
I have seen precisely 4 Kevin Smith movies, and none of those 4 were Clerks or Clerks 3.
All right, let's move on then. Might need to do an edit after all. Anyway, we're picking up with a ship in space, the Heraclides, right? There's some kind of a problem on the ship. There are 2 incident reports that the AI is picking up, right? And it's transmitting some kind of reports as a result. And in response to these,
the AI has the extremely hilarious name of Toby, by the way.
Yeah, it does. Well, clearly a reference to The Office.
Of course.
Yeah, probably, let's be real, it's probably a Conrad reference, right?
But yeah, the AI wakes up the captain.
Yes. Its
and
response
only
to these,
the captain.
Its response to these incident reports is to wake up the captain, Captain Lee, L.I., who is experiencing hypersleep sickness. And she's like, why is the rest of the crew still in her tubes? As she picks up one of those maintenance jack looking hammers, right? And it's like, well, we're not, the AI is like, well, we're not there yet. We have some incidents. We're about 20 days away from arriving on the moon Euridite. And Yeah, here's what we got. First, we got a passenger whose hypersleep chamber and oxygen line have been damaged and require service. And the other incident report is there is a contaminant on board, right?
Well, yes. However, she does not find out what the incident report actually is of the contaminant on board
Oh, good
until
point.
after she'd already had a run-in with the contaminant.
Yes.
Which, listeners, I hope you're sitting down because I'm about to shock you. The contaminant is a xenomorph.
Yes, Xenomorph on board, which has anyone made, like those baby on board signs for cars, but it says Xenomorph on board?
I mean, I'm sure someone has, but
TM,
I have never
copyright.
seen it.
That's our
So
idea.
you saying that right now is making me laugh because I've never seen it, but I'm sure that exists.
Somebody mock it up. We're going to sell it on Redbubble.
But yeah, she gets woken up by the AI and she's like, "Why did you wake me up?" And he's like, "Well, we have an incident report. One of your crew is probably dying. And the other incident report is," and then she gets killed by a xenomorph. And while she's dying, the AI is like, "There's something on board."
Yeah. Yes. Captain dead.
And
Presumably.
as you mentioned, yeah, presumably, side note, she's dead.
Yeah.
And this is important because, as you mentioned, they were on their way to a planet called Eurydice.
Yes. The United America's annexed moon of Eurydice. 20 days later, we're on this weird-looking alien moon that has been... it's got a lot of life on it, right? A lot of greenery, a lot of like weird space plants, a lot of weird space mooses.
It has been extremely terraformed.
It has been terraformed to bejesus and back.
Also, it's funny you mentioned the space moose because I have a note about the space moose.
Sure. Yeah.
And my note literally says "space moose" with an exclamation point at the end. And then to remind myself what the space moose was in case I forgot, I literally wrote next to it, "Imagine, moose, but lavender."
Yeah, it's a little kind of purpley lavendery moose, right? It's got weird antlers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also getting shot with an arrow.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We find very quickly that her name is Jane,
yes.
and she is shooting the space moose with a bow.
We meet our protagonist of this story arc, Jane, a capable hunter, a dark-skinned woman. Her partner, a white man named Ambrose, is with her, complimenting her hunting skills.
Yep. And she is repeatedly described as like an older lady that's been around for a long time. But like, I don't know, maybe it was just an issue with the art, but like she looked like a normal, like, woman in her 30s. Like she did not look old to me, although the comic repeatedly describes her as old.
Right. So it just must be maybe our artist Salvador Larroca didn't find an old enough lady to trace for this one. I didn't give the credits for this story arc, and I'm going to do those now. This is what happens when we're loosey-goosey with it.
Mm-hmm.
This story was written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, just like the previous story arc and Icarus were. Art by Salvador Larroca. You've heard lots about him in our Bloodlines episodes. Colors by Guru EFX, letters by Clayton Cowles, covers this time by Mark Aspinall, with some. Oh, and then because the trade paperback includes the annual, and that has a cover by Salvador Larroca. So that's where I was going with that. Who cares? Right off the bat, I will say, and Kenny, see if you can back me up on this. The art is more legible than Bloodlines was.
Not only will I agree with that, but there's a moment coming up not too far away from now where I want to talk a little bit about how the art is like actually like legitimately good.
Sure, yeah. And we haven't done the research. We're not like searching for things that LaRocca may have specifically plagiarized. We've talked on previous episodes that he's apparently allegedly well known as a notorious tracer. And once you see it, right?
Correct.
nothing in these issues stood out as super egregious to me.
I will agree to that. Yeah.
So far, and as I said on our Bloodlines Part 2 episode, I do think the coloring is doing a lot of good work, right? And maybe helping things.
Yep.
So
it is, but I will go on record right now. I was going to wait until later on, but since we're talking about the art, I do genuinely, like you said, the art in this book is way better than it was in Bloodlines.
It's so
the
much
characters,
better.
Yeah, the human characters look a lot more like natural. They look like they fit better. It doesn't look like a landscape with a photo of someone glued onto it. Like they look like they're naturally a part of the surrounding scenery. The faces look a lot more natural. The poses look a lot more naturalistic. Like I was extremely impressed at how much better the art in this book was than the previous one.
So much better than in my memory. I thought it was a different artist, right? I claimed it was a different artist on an earlier episode. I had to correct myself.
If I didn't know, I probably would have guessed it was a different person as well.
Yes. I wanted to just elaborate on something I said for our introduction with Jane. I described her as a dark-skinned woman. I don't know if she's supposed to be black or Native American. I can't tell. She has the Native American thing speaks to me because of in these next panels where she's talking about the moose that she has taken down with the arrow and how she's not going to waste any part of the animal. And she kind of has like a braid and some feathers on her ascot that might be feathers anyway. It might just be the tie of her ascot that sort of evokes some Native American imagery. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. So
yeah, see, it's funny you say that because when I was reading the comic, my brain registered her as Indian.
Okay. Oh,
not Native American, but like from India.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. My brain registered her as Indian. So yeah, she's just generically like dark skinned,
right. I guess. We don't know. We're not trying to be like insensitive of that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all staying in the episode, baby.
Sure. Her and Ambrose are out here hunting the space moose, i.e. moose but lavender, and she hits it with the arrow successfully, and while they're like chasing it down,
she's like straight up tracking it.
She makes it clear. Well, Ambrose, I guess, is the one that actually technically makes it clear through the dialogue that Jane has some kind of medical condition.
Right.
He doesn't elaborate because, presumably the both of them already know this, so they don't need to give details about it because they're both already aware of it.
Right.
But this is the first indication we're given that she has some kind of disease or medical problem, and then over the course of the comic we'll slowly here and there find out a little bit more every so often about it, but all we're told about it right now is that she has some kind of disease.
Yes, the other topic of conversation amongst them is that the shutdown is coming soon and the UA lawyers should be on their way, and Jane is saying things like this place will be ours maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow when they come, and Ambrose is making references to faith, which is going to be a big part of this comic book, right?
Yeah, the two of them are having a conversation that, when I was reading it, they have a lot of conversations where they vaguely dance around, belief and faith and things like that. And I literally wrote in my notes, cult? ?
Cult, period, in my opinion.
They're charitably speaking, they're a religion.
Sure.
As it turns out, they're a religion. I mean, you could argue that they're a cult, but that's neither here nor there for the purposes of these issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very religious. Their religion we don't really find out enough details about it to really know what's going on as far as like specifically like what their dogma is.
Right.
But they're all religious, and one of the key tenets of it is that they're like anti-technology,
They're kind of like Mennonites.
which is interesting because the whole reason they're here is because they're running planet-wide Earth processors.
Right.
So
They are here to terraform a moon. But here, before we get into this, I want to talk a little bit, just since we're on the topic of their faith, as Jane is sort of, thanking this animal, right? This space moose, right? She says, she reads, I'll call it a prayer. Maybe that's not accurate. Maybe it's a, just from the book of church.
whatever.
She says, "For the greatest sin of all, saith mother, is waste. To waste the life lost, whether it be man, beast, or flower. But in service of life, death is no sin, but a blessing unto all the living." The key thing I want to take away from that is this "all saith mother" line.
I knew that's what you were gonna fucking mention.
All right, because that is the tenet. We're gonna hear lots of references to mother, and I am going somewhere with this.
And I have a feeling I already know what that location is that you're going to with it.
Oh,
but
we'll see.
But yes, the point is that their religion is based around the concept of this mythical mother that they all pray to. Yes.
Mother at
and
crewexpendable.net.
Correct. And like I said, they're like big like anti-technology. They even mentioned that there's this one guy that's there that like was like a roboticist and electronics technician before coming here. And so he hasn't like done it or like, touched robots or touched technology the entire time he's been here.
Right.
They're like anti-technology.
And
we later find out that they're also specifically anti-synth, but we don't find that out until later.
Yeah, why would we? Also, that apologies to any Mennonites in the chat. I may not know what a Mennonite is, except that I have ridden the Amtrak train with them many a time. Anyway,
so
this is where we get the shot of the big old giant atmosphere processor, right? The Weyland-Yutani atmosphere processor that you see in the movie Aliens, set up behind this hill with these trees all over it by this body of water. We see this, the steeple of what looks like a chapel in front of it. And everybody's at this chapel, having a big celebration, talking a lot about mother and church and how they reject machines, right? As they are about to cut up a pig and celebrate, the shutdown, right?
Yeah, because basically the gist is, as we find out not too far away from now, but it's not really a spoiler, like they were selected by, I believe, UA and sent here to run the atmosphere processors and the terraforming machines.
Right.
And the idea is that they're going to stay here permanently on this planet and run these machines until the planet is fully terraformed. And then once it does, the people that were living on that planet, the planet becomes theirs, like legally.
Yeah. Yes. They will get a place for. Have we learned the name of them? Let's just say it now. They are a religious group called the Spinners.
The Spinners, yes.
Yeah.
And specifically the way it works is there's either 2 or 3, I don't remember, atmosphere processors on this planet. Right. And all of the people that like volunteered to go to this planet, they were split up to go to each one of the processors, and they have been there permanently. We find out during the shutdown sequence that the groups of people at each one of the processors have literally never met the groups of people at the other processors before.
Right. And this has been a 20-year endeavor, right? This has been happening for 20 years, and now we are finally at the time where the atmosphere processors have completed their work, and they will be shut down, and the planet will be self-sustaining. There's also talk, just to be clear, like there's talk of like there's mineral resources and mining and stuff that's going to happen on this planet as well that is, I'm sure, what the UA's interest is exports and things like that, right?
There is a very minor reference to there being what I believe is a neodymium mine, I think
Really?
it's called.
Not a trimonite mine? That's surprising.
Nope. There's some kind of mine with a valuable thing in it on this planet that's mentioned very briefly in passing while talking about something else. And the reason I'm mentioning it now is because they mentioned that passing reference is right around this point in the comic, but then it comes back as a more important plot development later.
Sure.
But it's mentioned for the first time around now. But anyway, like you said, they're here to shut these things down. And there's a little bit of like false tension where while they're shutting them down, they're like, oh no, is everything going to be work? Is everything actually going to be at the right levels now that these processors aren't on? But spoiler alert, everything works fine.
Yeah. We learned that Jane is like the de facto leader of this, and that Jane and Ambrose are the ones who sort of got all of these people to come here. Like none of them wanted to get on these ships and come here because they mistrust machines and their witch doctors. But they claim that Jane saw our mother's hand in it, right? Another little note, we got a guy running one of the atmosphere processors named Simon. And Simon seems to have a crush on Sophie, who is at one of the other atmosphere processors, and he's really looking forward to meeting her sometime.
Yep.
Right.
And actually, going back to my brief mention earlier, I actually want to take a little bit of time to talk about Simon, just as a brief aside here.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, let's talk about Simon. Simon's holding that mic like he's doing his own podcast in this comic book, isn't he?
While they're shutting down the podcast, I was about to say while they're shutting down the podcast. Oh my God.
Should that be the thumbnail art for the episode?
No, it doesn't need to be.
Okay.
But like I was saying, while they're shutting down the processors was the word I was looking for. He's like the radio guy that's talking to the other processors, and he's talking to the other radio guy at one of the other ones, who's this gal Sophie that you mentioned.
He's like, what's up? What the fuckers? What the fucking knots? What the fuckalos?
That is precisely what he does.
Mark Maron guy.
And while he's talking to Sophie, there's a panel of like behind him, there's this asshole there named Gunner.
Fucking Gunner.
And he's like kind of a character that comes into play more majorly later. But they introduce him here as like someone who's like just for no reason at all, just talks shit about Simon and like makes fun of him and like harasses him for having a crush on Sophie.
Yeah. Sophie's like, I'm on the lever ready to go. And she goes, that's not the lever Simon wants her on. Yeah.
That's the line Gunner gives. And he's like, and everyone's like, don't say that. She'll hear you, referring to Sophie, not even caring whether Simon hears him or not. And this is the part that I mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk about. There is a shot where like after Gunner says that and Simon clearly hears him, there's a panel where Simon is like still sitting at the table, and he may or may not be holding the microphone. I don't remember, but he has like his head down and he has this look on his face like he's like a second away from crying. And it's like it's sadness and it's anger and it's like self-hatred all mixed up into one like facial expression. And I was blown away at how good the art was in that panel, because like how whatever Salvador LaRocca did to draw that panel, he accurately represented precisely the emotion Simon was feeling.
Yeah, man.
Because I don't know if it's ever something I've gone into on the show, but I have had severe clinical depression since I was 14 years old. That face Simon is making in that panel, I recognize it because I have that look on my own face a lot more often than I should. Wow. And so I took one look at that and I went, I know exactly what's happening to him. I know precisely what he's going through and what he's thinking. I understand this character, and I snapped my fingers if you didn't hear it. I immediately became fully on board with this guy.
And that's pretty, I mean, that's pretty powerful. You know, not a few panels earlier when Gunner's making that dick joke. The lady who punches Gunner in the arm looks kind of fucked up. You know?
Yeah. But like that panel of Simon was really good because like
100%. That is an extremely expressive.
Yeah, like it fucking blew me away how accurately he was able to represent precisely what that character, like even without any of the dialogue balloons, you would be able to tell exactly what's going through his mind.
Yeah,
because he like makes it clear that I don't want to say that Gunner is correct, because, you know, Gunner just like made a sex joke, but he makes it clear that Gunner is correct in the sense of he does have a thing for Sophie, because after Gunner says that, his response is like, oh, there's nothing about me that a girl like her would ever want to see.
Jane is consoling him, right? And she says, listen, like, she says to Simon, she says, you're the best of us, right?
Yeah. Like, she straight up is like, don't listen to that fucker. Listen to me. Yeah. All right. All of you guys are here because of me. Right. You're all here because I'm the leader. You follow me. So I need you to listen to me right now. You are the best one here. Right. You are the key person that matters the most of all of us.
She's a good leader, you know, and she cares about these people.
That little segment of the page there, I don't want to say blown away because I already said that earlier, but like I was just absolutely taken with how everything, like the art managed to be really good right there.
Yeah.
The writing hit all of the points that I recognize from my own brain as the kind of thing that's happening. Like everything came through to like an absolute perfect synthesis in this one little conversation. And I went, the magic of comics, baby.
Hell yeah, man. Nailed it and got it in one, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was extremely good. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like I don't want to say spoiler alert because I've already made that joke a couple of times, but this segment of the comic is my favorite part of the 3 issues we read for this episode.
Wow. Okay, I hated it,
but yeah, the point is again, they're shutting down the atmosphere processors, and when they do, everything goes offline, but everything stays normal. The oxygen readouts are normal, so the planet's fully terraformed and can be lived on. Yes. And also, right here is also when we find out that the name of the organization is the Spinners. I know you already mentioned that, but here during this conversation is when we find it out.
Yeah, so we this is Alpha Station. We learned that they shut Alpha Station down. There's also Beta Station and Gamma Station, right? And then all of these have, so like Gamma Station then has Donald, James, and Atticus hubs. I just think this is fun. Beta Station has Sylvia and Hannah hubs. So that must be a little bit of a smaller one. I don't know. And then Alpha Station has Lily, Lucille, and Matilda hubs.
And right after they shut everything down, everyone's starting to celebrate. Sure. And right before the celebration actually starts, Ambrose notices that Jane isn't around.
Yeah.
He looks around for a bit and finds that she'd gone outside. And so the two of them have a conversation where the first thing we find out is that disease Jane has is something akin to Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's a degenerative disease. I think she mentions that her bones are going to be fusing together. Which means it would not be Parkinson's, but like it's Parkinson's like in the sense of like her nerves don't work correctly and like her muscles don't work correctly anymore. Like when she was aiming the bow at that space moose earlier, Ambrose had a comment of something to the effect of how, you know, she's, you know, she did better than she has in a little while. And since you don't know she has a disease, you don't know that has any kind of like meaning to it. Right. But yeah, like it indicates that like, you know, her muscles are starting to go, like you said, her bones are probably going to start fusing together at some point. Her joints, yeah.
Which that is a real disease that can actually happen to people.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And but yeah, she has some kind of degenerative, like neurological, like and bone disease that will eventually trap her in her body and then kill her.
Yeah, this was probably my favorite part of these issues, where she's telling Ambrose and she says, I almost left this moon and the faith and everything when I found out I had this disease. She talks about how the Spinners, this organization, this religious group, doesn't allow the treatment that could fix her, which sucks. Like, I know that's a complicated issue, but generally that just fucking sucks when that shit happens, for sure. Right?
Yep.
But she wanted to ensure that this colony was successful, right? And being that she was in charge of all of this, she didn't want to leave and like end up risking like the colony for everybody else, like risking the United Americas reneging on the deal. Anything,
like she kind of implies that if she had left before their mission was up, UA would be able to use that as an excuse to like not give them the planet at the end of it. She doesn't straight up say that, but she does kind of imply it.
Right. So I get the feeling like this is a group that the Spinners don't have a place. I mean, everything is so industrialized in this version of the future. Everything is machines and technology, right? We've seen that in the movies and in the books and comics we've read. It's just true, right? And so certainly this medical treatment that she needed would be heavily reliant on that stuff. And they're, trying to choose a life away from all of that stuff, right? They're Luddites, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
And that's all well and good, and she wants to give them that paradise, right? Like, I think that there's something really interesting that in order for them to have that, they had to sign a deal with the United Americas and run these machines for 2 decades and continue to maintain these machines in order to live away from a society dependent on these machines, right? It's really it's thematically interesting, right?
Yeah, it's a delicious piece of dramatic irony that to me worked very well in this story.
Yeah. But Jane's decision here where she says, like, I chose to stay here and make sure we get through all of this, and she essentially says once we get through all of this, I'm going to walk out into the woods and I'm just not going to come back.
Yeah, I'm just going to walk into the woods and peace, bitch. You'll never fucking see me again. And I was like, nice, you go.
Yeah, her plan is to go out there and take her own life. She wants the freedom to choose the way she goes out before her body becomes her prison. And she's just been holding on long enough to make sure that everybody else will be okay.
Well, unfortunately, turns out she'll have to hold on just a little bit longer for reasons outside of her control.
Yeah. Just real quick. You know how there was nothing in Bloodlines that could get me on board with Gabriel Cruz?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm on board with Jane as a protagonist, even if like the complications of this, like she's part of this religious group that are kind of doing something hypocritical, but they're doing it out of the necessity of having their home, but also she can't have the treatment for this disease that she wants, but she's being selfless and seeing this through for everybody else. Like I like this character. She's complicated in ways. The situation is complicated in ways that I can't instantly like know how I would feel in those situations, But I believe the character when the character is telling me what they're doing in these situations. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I like her too. I mean, I went on record in the Bloodlines episodes that like I didn't have a problem with Cruz being the protagonist of that comic. Like, I don't give a shit, whatever.
Right.
Just give me some whatever bullshit character, doesn't matter to me. That being said, I do like Jane more than I like Gabriel Cruz.
Yeah. And this whole setup of this group on this planet, terraformed planet, successful. Like this is something different than what we've seen in other Alien books, right? The twist of this being like a religious group, especially,
Also, it's a fun little parallel that this arc and the next arc, Icarus, are both about a group of people who are trying to sequester themselves away on a paradise island to like purposely try to keep themselves away from anyone else.
Yeah, very, very good point.
It's a fun little parallel there. I don't think it's like, dramatically or narratively relevant. I just think it's a fun little parallel. That's all.
It is. I think so too.
But anyway, speaking of parallels, unfortunately, the Heraclides finally shows up again. And it shows up again by partially burning through the atmosphere when it crash lands into the Eurydice's garden.
Right. The garden, the crops, all of that stuff. It does miss the church. Thank God. But yeah, it burns the fuck out of the crops. And
yeah, we find out that they lost. They were told later that they lose years worth of crops, and dozens of people died in the crash.
Yeah. And Jane is on the scene though, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get the pumps moving so they can put the fires out. She gets inside the ship to start looking for survivors, and she finds
yeah, what does she find, Neal?
She finds these like leathery looking egg things.
Yeah, they're like big, they're like eggs, but they like go up to your knees, and they look like they open like in a flower petal form. It's very weird.
And there's all kinds of shit on the walls too. And she also finds a woman, a blonde woman in her underwear.
Yeah.
Who is begging,
like she had just gotten out of a pod.
Who's begging for help.
Mm-hmm.
When suddenly her chest explodes and a little chest bursty guy comes out.
It sure does.
Face to face with Jane, who is splattered with blood.
Yeah, the chest burster and Jane kind of like look at each other and have like a huh?
Yeah.
Kind of moment before the chest burster slithers away. And I genuinely might be remembering this incorrectly, but I seem to recall that after it scurries away, she looks up and there is a full-grown xenomorph standing in the doorway before it disappears.
She doesn't see it. No.
Okay. So she doesn't see it, but it does happen. No.
So first thing I want to say, this chest burster in this panel where it's face to face with her really looks like a dick, just so much more than they normally like they always do, but this one really looks
That's
like
correct. Sure
this
does.
might have been a traced drawing of a penis. Sorry, I hope no one's listening with their kids. The thing scurries off, and then Ambrose enters, and he doesn't see the chest burster, but he sees the body torn open, and she says, I was so wrong, Ambrose. I saw them. And he says, saw what? And she says, the dogs of perdition. And this is where we see on the top of the chapel, we see a xenomorph sort of peering down from the roof and sort of disappearing behind the steeple.
So that's where the xenomorph was. I thought it appeared in the ship, but it was on the church. Okay. I couldn't remember the specifics of it, but I knew a xenomorph showed up at the end, which, speaking of which, that's the end of issue 1.
Yeah,
that's how it ends.
She calls them the dogs of perdition, beasts as black as sin. They knew the wastrels' hearts and fed on their pride. They're real, Ambrose. I swear to you, they're real. They didn't come for the wastrels and idolaters and evil men. They came for us. End of issue 1 of this story arc, issue 7 overall. Kenny, if you had just read issue 1 of this, would you have picked up issue 2?
Yes.
Yeah, same here, right? That's a good first issue.
Like, as we were discussing in our Bloodlines episode, we covered the first 3 issues, and it took until the end of issue 3 for us to be like, yeah, we'd probably continue. Like, I was reading this, and like I was like halfway through issue 1, and I was like, fuck, I want to read all 6 of these issues right now.
It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but something gripped me about it. Now, like, this storyline is very good, very interesting. I am definitely excited to read more of it in a way I was not at this point in Bloodlines.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump into issue 8. next issue in the story arc. I'm gonna keep doing that's the numbering. I'm gonna go with the actual issued numbering since this is a continuation of.
That's fine. I mean, my notes are titled Revival issues 1 through 3. I didn't go with the internal numbering. I went with the arc numbering, but that's fine.
Okay. Everyone, we're all intelligent people. We can keep this shit straight. Next issue opens with a mass funeral.
Yep, they're having a funeral for all of the, to quote this conversation, dozens with an S of people that died, and unfortunately during the funeral a big argument breaks out.
Yeah, because we should say that this ship was carrying more spinners who are coming to live here, as well as I believe the United America's lawyers or whoever was supposed to sign off on this deal.
Yeah, those lawyers that they mentioned earlier were on the ship, which is only mentioned casually in passing, and you'd think that would be a bigger deal considering how many times the word contract was uttered in issue 1. You'd think the fact that the lawyers are dead would be a bigger deal, but no, they don't really seem to care that much.
Well, they're lawyers. Nobody misses them.
Fair enough. I just watched Jurassic Park the other day, so that's the blood-sucking lawyer. That's a good point.
Hey, what's the joke? Why don't lawyers ever try to like prosecute sharks?
I don't know.
Professional courtesy.
Got him.
I don't know if that's the right structure of that joke, and I heard it on I heard it on a different podcast, so that's not even mine.
It's fine. But like I said, a big argument breaks out because there are some people that care about there are some people there that care about the contract and the technology and shutting down the processors and stuff, and other people are like, dude, shut up, this is a funeral, people are dead.
And then Jane is like, we can't be out here, it's not safe, the dogs of perdition are gonna get us, whatever's on that ship is in our garden now. And they're like,
and everyone's like, Jane, shut up.
They're like, we checked around the ship, we didn't see any of this stuff. Ambrose went inside the ship and he didn't see anything either. Right?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I know what I saw, and I saw these things are coming for us. It tore out of that woman's rib cage, and the walls of the ship were all looking like a wasp's nest,
Mm-hmm. And then Jane storms off. Ambrose goes after her, and then they have a conversation where Jane gets mad at Ambrose for telling everyone that she's sick, because somebody implies that maybe her sickness gave her some kind of hallucination, and that's what made her stomp off.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can't fucking believe you would tell everyone. And he's like, I didn't have to tell everyone. No one here is an idiot. All right. We all can see it plain as day that you have something wrong with you. Come on.
You know who suggested it might be hallucinations? That
let me guess. I wouldn't say, let me guess, Gunner, right?
That asshole Gunner. Yep. It was him.
Yeah.
Now they're also arguing that they need to get back to that crash ship and bleed the fuel lines, or it's going to soak into the soil. Mm-hmm. And ruin it, and that's a good point, but she's very much like, we need to get the fuck out of this area,
And I believe she says at this point that no one is allowed to leave at night.
Right. Yeah, she's trying to get everyone, she's trying to set a curfew, I believe.
Which is significant because then it cuts to our pal Gunner.
Yeah, and who's
and
he
his
with?
And he's with his secret girlfriend Becca.
Right. Now Gunner is a married man, or he's a man in a relationship with another woman.
Oh, I have no idea. I didn't know what his relationship status was. I just knew that he was keeping his relationship with Becca secret, but they never really go into why.
He's coupled up with Tabby. Tabby is the blonde lady who is like, stop it, he can hear you, Yeah. So he's coupled up with Tabby, but he's philandering, right?
He sure is.
He's sneaking off at night with Becca and a couple of shovels and a lantern.
And the two of them decide to go investigate the crash site, even though Jane said earlier not to. And then Gunner gets fucking murked by a Xenomorph.
So I do think that they're on an official work detail, and like they were going out there to bleed these lines or whatever they were talking about.
Well, okay, here's the thing. First off, they wouldn't have been sent out there to do that because Jane dictated that no one leaves at night,
Right.
and they were doing this at night.
But
They might have been sent out there to do something, but that's not why they were out there.
right. Well, he's the one who was pushing to bleed those fuel lines, so he might have been like, "We're doing it anyway," right? And
I mean,
anyway.
that might have just been an excuse to have a reason to sneak out later.
Sure. But yes, you're correct. They get on they go check out the crash wreckage. He's like, let's go inside. They see some empty ovomorphs, right?
Yeah, they sure do.
He says, talking about Jane, he says that old woman don't know her ass from sunrise, which is a very funny turn of phrase.
And then he gets a spiked tail through the chest. And then in my other favorite panel in these 3 issues,
yes,
he gets a pharyngeal jaw through his head from the back,
like from the top back.
And so it bursts his face out into pieces, and I absolutely loved that panel because it looked like something from The Thing.
It looked like some shit from like an extra gory issue of Heavy Metal magazine.
Like it literally looked like a panel of like The Thing from The Thing in the middle of a mutation. Like part of his face is like broken apart, like it's peeling. It looks so fucking cool, man.
It's gnarly, dude. Yeah, and then it's Xenomorph
rad as hell.
And then the Xenomorph just like drops his body, and Becca starts like saying a prayer, right? Singing something like a spinner hymn or something.
It advances on her, and then it cuts away before anything happens. But it cuts to the rest of the spinners finding Gunner's mangled corpse.
Well, first
Tabby, notably, they don't find it in the ship, though, which is noticeable.
You're right. That is noticeable. They find it outside the ship. But before they find him, Tabby shows up and tells Jane at Jane's house, wakes her up and says, Gunner went out last night. He never came home. She says, don't worry, we'll find him. Cut to, they found all his parts.
Yep.
And he is just out on the grass. And then she's like, Tabitha, who else was with him? And she says, he told me he was going alone, but Becca's missing too. That little whore's been on every work detail with Gunner this past month. Somebody else is vomiting in the background, right?
And so they go out to investigate to look for Becca. And while they do, they find an uprooted and knocked over tree.
Yes.
And where all those roots were in the ground when the tree got knocked over, it created a small little pocket underground where the roots were.
Right.
And then they go into that pocket and they find Becca resined to the wall of this little pocket. And there is just a Xenomorph just standing there chilling when they walk in.
One minor detail. This is Jane and Ambrose, and at some point Jane scratched her face on something. Her face is bleeding and she didn't even notice. So Ambrose is like, you got this, you can't feel your face anymore, like your nerves are dying, basically, right? Like you're in no shape to protect yourself or anyone else and you need to get out of here. And she's like, no, I'm not, I'm going in. Right? She insists. And they find Becca, and Becca is she's all cocooned up and she's saying, is Tabby here? Can you tell her I'm sorry about Gunner? Like she's feeling the guilt, you know?
And then like I said,
all the other spinners come in as well.
And there's a Xenomorph just kind of standing there. And everyone's like, wait, what the hell? And then the Xenomorph lunges out and grabs someone and rips him apart in half at the waist, i.e. he aliens someone.
A classic aliens.
And then all of the rest of them run out and the Xenomorph gives chase. But while he's running by, just for good measure, he also just kills Becca while he's running by.
Yeah, just pops her in because they open fire. They have some firearms. They have a bow. I know Jane is mad that Ambrose didn't bring his shotgun, right? So they are shooting at this thing, and they do enough to it to get it to run off, but it does pop Becca's head beforehand, and then she's trying to get to the church. They're still dealing with this thing as they're trying to escape the tunnel.
Oh, and Jane specifically opts to run to Ambrose's house because, as you mentioned, he forgot to bring the shotgun with him. So she's like, "Oh, we need that bad boy." So she runs over to Ambrose's house, is searching through his house, and something happens here. While she's in his house. She's going through from room to room, opens up the door to his bedroom and walks in and sees a big pile of ovomorphs stacked up against the wall.
Yes, it's such a wild visual.
Now pause. Neal, what occurred in your brain? Like, what thoughts did you have when you saw that panel and the ovomorphs were there? What was your thought process after that?
I can only answer this having read the story arc before. I don't think I knew the answer my first time, right?
All right.
But this time I saw it and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I thought, oh, wait, it totally does. They said earlier in dialogue that Ambrose is the only one who had gone back inside the ship, and he lied about what was in there, and obviously under cover of darkness or something snuck all these ovomorphs out, right?
Well, my thought process was, wait, what the fuck? Was the first thing I thought. And the second thing I thought was, why haven't they killed him? And then there was a brief pause and I went, is this MF secretly a synth? And then literally 2 panels later, Ambrose comes into his house, confronts Jane, they get into a fight, and Jane scratches him on the face, and he bleeds white, confirming that, yes, this MF is in fact a synth.
Ambrose is a synth. Who would have seen that coming? We are adding it to the list.
Well, okay, Ambrose. You say who would have seen that coming, but the sudden reveal that he's a synth is only the second of 3 sudden plot twists that happen right now.
Sure.
Because in the third one, which by the way is a side note, this is how issue 2 ends. He pins her down and she's like freaking out and struggling and trying to get out. And while he pins her down, one of the ovomorphs opens and a facehugger crawls out. And I went, oh shit, they're about to give us a plot twist, like a cliffhanger where she's like about to get grabbed by a facehugger. No, the plot twist is that she does successfully get cocooned by a fucking facehugger.
Yes. Yeah. I want to ask you again. All right. So now you've read the second issue of this arc. Would you continue?
Absolutely,
right?
Because like I was reading this and I was like, oh, it's really fun and like cool and tense that they're gonna give us a scene where she's like about to get face hugged, and then she does get face hugged, and I went, what the fuck? I thought she was the main character of the comic.
Now, I'm sure...
Like, how are they killing her in issue 2?
I'm sure there are similar stories to this, right? Where colonies who are underprepared for something like a xenomorph have to deal with a xenomorph or 2, right? I mean, that's the premise of Alien, right? So, like, it's safe to say... Like, what's that book? Is it Phalanx, I think? Is that the novel where it's kind of like a planet where all the tech is medieval?
Yeah, that's Phalanx, baby.
Yeah, I haven't read Phalanx. It is on our list. We will get there eventually.
I was trying to remember the author's name, and I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Scott Steiner. And then I was like, no, I think that's a wrestler. And then I was like, oh no way. And then I was like, no way, it's Scott Summers. And I was like, no, that's fucking Cyclops.
Yeah, that's an X-Man. It's Scott Stapp, lead singer of Creed.
Scott Stapp, that's correct.
I don't know who. Speaking of religious nut jobs,
hold on, give me just a second. I actually have his name right here.
Okay,
it is Scott Sigler is the guy's name.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sure that there are a lot of. This isn't the only Alien story where it's like a colony that's kind of old-fashioned or underprepared, not at all ready to deal with something like this, is suddenly having to deal with xenomorphs.
I mean, to be fair, other than the fact that it's not a colony, that's also the premise of the first movie.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But it's a great premise, and it's an interesting enough idea that I'm going to want to check that out every single time, right? Just to see how it plays out differently. I mean, these are space Quakers, right? Dealing with a threat and just not even knowing how to rationalize it, right? I mean, they're putting it in these religious terms every time they talk about it, right? The dogs of perdition, we're being punished, mother is punishing us, all of this shit, right? Very fascinating idea.
It's like what's his face from Alien 3 who was referring to it as like a, an angel or a devil or whatever like religious being he was referring to it as. I don't remember. Dragon, there we go. But yeah, he was also viewing this thing in religious terms as well. So yeah.
Right. Also, this issue 9 cover of the what is this thing? The Xenomorph.
I don't have it in front of me, so I couldn't tell you off the top.
The Xenomorph in front of this I'm gonna sound like such a fucking city boy, like the thing that spins and you can tell which way the wind is blowing.
A weather vane.
Yeah, and like the fire underneath it. That's pretty. If I can crop this well, this is gonna be the thumbnail art.
Before we move on, though, to the 3rd issue of Revival, there is something I would like to mention very quickly.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before that I read most of the comics we cover on the show on a website that lets me illegally read them for free.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have, on a few occasions in the past, mentioned if there's any fun or interesting comments left on the individual issues.
Right.
And I would like to say that there was some fun comments on issue. Well, you would have it as issue 8, but I have it as issue 2. Yeah. The one we just finished. It is actually a few comments. It's a conversation between 2 people.
Okay.
The conversation starts off by it was left presumably right after it was released by a username metal-clergy, and it's not the word hyphen, it's just a hyphen, so metal clergy.
Okay.
Leaves the comment, a frustrating read, and I really wanted to like this book. Johnson serves up the well-worn clueless civilians in over their heads and getting massacred alien trope, mixed with a pseudo-Christian mother cult for whom the reader feels little or no connection or stakes. 8 issues in, and all I can do is contemplate going through my Dark Horse collection, which actually did the tropes a lot better IMO.
Interesting.
And then he gets a response from username Sean the Lamp Monster.
From username Sci-Hobbs.
Yeah, he gets a response from username Sean Lamp Monster Lampa.
Okay.
And his comment is, disagree, good book.
All right.
And then Metal Clergy responds to that with the comment, fair enough.
He won him over. Good job, Sean. So,
and that was all I had to say about the comment section on that issue.
I do want to say I've heard this before. The diehard Dark Horse readers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Seemed anytime something in these early Marvel books touched a similar theme or something to a previous Dark Horse story, I remember like seeing those in the comments on various places online, X.
We're calling it Twitter. Don't do that again.
No, I'm calling it X because that dude needs to live with what he fucking did.
Well,
right.
And here's the thing: as a very brief side note, he announced
he's going to start charging people. So don't follow us on X anymore.
Yeah, he announced yesterday or today that he's considering charging a fee just to use the website. So if he does that, we will not be on Twitter anymore, folks.
Yeah, we are on Blue Sky though.
We are.
Crew Expendable.
We managed to get the handle, baby.
We got it. Anyway, this was a huge complaint, and like I get it, right? You've been reading Dark Horse Alien comics for forever. You fall in love with the stories, everything, and then Marvel comes along and seemingly throws all that stuff out, much like they did with the Star Wars books, right?
Mm-hmm,
and they're kind of carving their own path. And I understand your frustrations, everybody. I'm right there with you. I read a lot of Dark Horse comics. I didn't read all of them, right? But I read a bunch of them, and it is kind of a bummer. But like, you know, I'm enjoying this book on its own terms.
Yeah, it's a good
so
book.
far. This is So I'm with Sean. Disagree. Good book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and
That's
it doesn't stop the old Dark Horse books. If they did them better, that's great. We're gonna get to those eventually too.
Yeah, you can still read those books. Like, not only is it still possible to buy copies of them, but Marvel is reprinting them.
Marvel is reprinting them here. I'm gonna call and response. I'm gonna hopefully remember to do this at the end of the episode as well. If there is anyone out there who knows a Dark Horse arc that is very, very similar to this one, I want to read it. I want to read it as a compare and contrast. In fact, like, I want to know, because I like this premise, right? I like this setup.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. Mother at crewexpendable.net.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into this bad boy.
Yeah. Like I said, that's how the second issue of this arc ends, and the third and final issue that we're covering in this episode starts with a montage of people getting murdered by xenomorphs over some voiceover boxes by Ambrose that I don't give a shit about what he's saying, because fuck that guy.
I care a little bit, but we're going to touch on it in broad strokes. So this opening scene of like the guy running through the wheat fields from xenomorphs, first panel looks amazing. Second panel looks goofy as hell because those xenomorphs are like, everyone's silhouetted against the wheat or the corn or whatever, and it just looks goofy. But then the xenomorphs catch up, and it gets grim, as they eat the guy. But meanwhile, in Ambrose's house, Jane's getting face hugged, right?
Mm-hmm. She sure the fuck is.
And he's saying shit like, I'm sure you imagine what it'll be like when you've lost the ability to move, knowing that soon the thing that kills you will be all that's left of you. He's like equating her disease to the face hugger now, right?
I'm also rolling my eyes while making the jerk off motion while I'm reading his dialogue. I don't give a fuck what this guy has to say.
It is an extremely sinister android monologue, right? But he says something interesting, right? Once she's out with the face hugger on.
He certainly does. He makes it clear that mother they worship is real and actually exists.
Well, he says, I've seen her, Jane. It's just like the book of Jude says. For mother's womb be all the earth and all the worlds beyond, and all who bear her light within her breast become themselves our mother, their flesh, and will unmade and made anew. It's a weird sentence. Their flesh and will unmade and made anew. I feel like that's a typo there. But I think he's talking about the goddess, dude.
Yeah, I know. That's what you were thinking.
He's talking about the goddess, everybody.
I knew that from literally the moment you said that I knew that was exactly and precisely where you were going with it.
Yeah, his mother for this guy. Like, not for all the spinners, maybe, but in his twisted up and synthetic mind, right? He's like, yeah, it makes sense. All who bear her light within their breasts become themselves our mother, right? The idea of, like, we're just all going to become this thing. We keep fucking around with the xenomorphs. We're just going to become the hybrid that is predicted, right? Yeah, man.
Sure.
This is it. This is a reference to the goddess. Philip Kennedy Johnson, nothing if not consistent with this idea, in my opinion.
None of that shit ends up mattering, though, because while he's in the middle of giving this speech, his head gets fucking demolished by a baseball bat.
Again, you must love this panel as well.
I love it so much. His face, he gets hit. I believe like the person is standing behind him and swings to hit him, I believe, on his right side of the head. Yeah. So his head just kind of explodes and breaks apart to the right, and just like pieces of his face are just flying through the air, and I'm like, yeah, suck it, jerk.
It's very reminiscent of the way that Ash got his head clocked in Alien, right? Yeah.
And I don't remember what this character's name is, but we find out in just a few panels that like the guy we were talking about earlier that like used to be like a genius roboticist but to join the spinners instead, this is that guy.
Yes.
as it turns out.
Meanwhile,
I couldn't remember his name, so I just called him Baseball Bat Guy.
sure.
But yeah, this is that guy.
Big Stick Man.
Yes.
His name is Big, and his last name is Stickman.
That is correct. Big
God.
Stickman.
Guys, remember when I said I was tired?
I'm just rolling with it, baby. Let's go.
Facehugger has fallen off of Jane, and Big Stickman's like, "Holy shit, Jane, are you okay?" And she's like, "No." And then she blows away the Facehugger with the shotgun, and she's like, "Now I'm okay." And again, Facehugger marks on the skin, nothing if not consistent. This creative team.
And there was no way that she was in there for long enough for that facehugger to successfully gestate something in her.
We'll have to see how this pays off, because we don't get the payoff in this episode.
We don't.
But
That's correct.
I've got a theory on this.
So do I.
Is your theory that these are the David protomorphs?
That was not my theory, no.
Because these eggs are very, very green, and they don't seem as large as his ovos, right? But the gestation cycle being so fast, and the maturation, of course, any of the ones that hatched on the ship, they had 20 days to mature, so that's less of it. But like the implantation being so fast is reminiscent to me of the ovomorphs from Covenant.
Oh, how I processed it was that the facehugger didn't implant anything in her.
Oh, interesting. I'm thinking, maybe that's a good point, because she is
like my understanding of what happened is that Ambrose pins her down, the facehugger latches onto her, and then right after it latches onto her, Baseball Bat Guy comes in, breaks Ambrose's head off. And then right after that, the facehugger detaches. My thought was the facehugger attaches onto her, tries to implant or is about to implant because it's like the only living host there. And then a different new host comes in, and the facehugger goes, "Oh no, this host is like not very viable because it can like sense that she has like a degenerative genetic disease."
Fascinating.
And so it's like, if something is implanted in her, that xenomorph, since the disease is genetic, might also have that disease. So rather than implanting in her, it unattaches to try to get onto the guy that just arrived, but she kills it with a shotgun before it can.
Fascinating. So here's the thing. That makes sense, and I think that's likely what's going on here. I haven't read this since it came out,
and I should say, this is the first time I've read it. I have not read issues 4 through 6 of this arc yet, so I have no idea if my theory is even correct.
Right.
But that's just what I'm guessing is happening based on what I'm seeing in front of me. That's all.
I read this when this trade, the collected edition, dropped on digital. Again, I'm reading the Comixology version. I read it then, and that's the only time I read it, so I don't remember. It absolutely makes sense that the facehugger was like, "Oh, you're not a viable host because of your other, because of your degenerative disease. So I'm gonna bounce," and then she pops it. But also, I thought maybe, I'm just gonna say this: they're not particularly canon, right? But the gestation periods in like the Alien versus Predator movies also super duper short, you know. So who knows, right? We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out when we read the other 3 issues. Yeah.
So this guy's name is Leo.
Okay. For whatever reason, I was going to guess that his name was Jacob, because I think there was a Jacob that was mentioned, but maybe I was also just thinking of the party member named Jacob from Mass Effect 2, who vaguely kind of looks like the guy in this comic. But anyway,
let's go with that. So she's like, "I got to go check out the other cabins for eggs." And he's like, "Go for it and save people. I'll catch up with you. I'm going to hack this robot with my knife and figure out what he knows."
Oh yeah.
And then
sorry, go ahead.
Well, now we're in this scene with these cornfields. They look like cornfields to me. I said wheat fields earlier.
Yeah. I would have assumed they were corn.
Yeah, they're green. It's corn. These, here's the thing, man. A cornfield, great setting for some horror, some tension, right? Not working for me in these panels. There's too much of a delineation between the corn, the stalks in the background, and the outline of the xenomorphs in the foreground. It looks we're back to some of the shit we saw in Bloodlines where shit looks copy and pasted, you know.
Yeah, it looks like it was added after the fact later on. Yeah.
Right. And it's just not working. But there is a couple, right? Well, it's Simon.
One of them is Simon. I don't know who the other person is.
I think it's Tabitha. I think it's.
It could be Tabby. I mean, there's also theoretically a possibility it could be Sophia or Sophie.
Well, no,
I think her name is,
because Sophia is still at the.
Oh yeah, they haven't shown up yet. That's right. Yeah, so it probably is Tabby. But yeah, it's Simon and someone else, presumably Tabby, are hiding in the corn while xenomorphs are like stalking through the corn trying to find them.
Yeah, and they're huddled. They've like given up, and we see.
And they start praying to Mother and
some sort of Mother scripture as this xenomorph like rises up from behind them.
Yep.
Only to then be shot by Ron Glass.
Yep. Is imagine an old guy with a white beard and a white ponytail. But yeah, Simon and Tabby flee. And they meet up with Jane, and the three of them eventually end up making it to the church and meeting up with who I'm calling the rest of the survivors, although I don't really have any way of knowing if that's actually true or not.
Yeah, I do. Let's, this scene though, with these face huggers, like crawling on this door, trying to get to these, out of this bedroom, because there were more put in cabins. Pretty cool, pretty scary. Right. And I loved seeing Jane.
Yeah, they're like doing that scene where like you're trying, like, okay, again, I just referenced it earlier. Like I watched Jurassic Park, the scene near the end of the movie where Ellie and Alan are trying to close the door to the control room, and the Velociraptor like has his hand through the door and is trying to push it open. That exact same scene is happening here, except instead of Velociraptor claws, it's like the legs of a face hugger that are trying to push the door open.
Yeah.
They make it to the church, and then what'd you say the guy's name was? Leo, I think.
Oh yeah.
Shows up with a demolished like section of Ambrose's face,
right,
and is basically like, I reprogrammed him so that he has full access to his memory, but he's also incapable of lying to you. So any information you want from him, now is the perfect time to ask.
Yeah, man. They just like, it's cool that they're able to just like bypass that, but like there's not much. I don't know how this guy's gonna talk because there's no mouth left. Remember, like at least Ash and Bishop had like their mouths.
Well, except for the fact that he absolutely is, because he answers their questions, so he is still able to talk.
Intense art decisions. These up close images of the head and the detail on all of this stuff, it's consistent from when the perspective changes, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know what he used for photo reference for this, but like all of these things, like the peeling skin, the same ways we saw the guy's head Gunner's head get busted open in the previous issues, or when Ambrose got decked with the bat at the beginning of this issue. It's all very, very consistent and very strong. And I'm wondering if maybe I'm analyzing the artwork here again. Okay. There's a lot of like outside things, right? And like he very clearly used photo reference for these corn fields, which is totally fine. And the structures in this are extremely simple. So he's not having to deal with that industrial sort of architecture of the hallways that we had to deal with so much in Bloodlines. And then he's getting to do like detailed, gruesome stuff like this. I'm wondering if this book is just playing more to the artist's strengths than Bloodlines was.
I would say that is correct. Yes. Like the stuff that he gets to do in this book seems to be the stuff he is better at doing.
Yeah,
Because all of it looks way better.
totally. Salvador LaRocca. I couldn't think of his name for a second there.
It's very funny though. You were wondering, like, what, like, the reference that he used to draw like Ambrose's broken partial face.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is the reference he used, or even if it is really a reference, because this is a little bit of a stretch. This is a strange reference for me to make. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
But when I saw the little like section, like disc of Ambrose's head that he's carrying around, it made me think of the Shadow, like the old like pulp hero from like the 30s.
Okay.
Because for anyone out there that doesn't know, the Shadow is like a crime fighter, and he wears like a big trench coat and has like a gun.
For anyone out there who doesn't know what evil lurks in the hearts of men.
That is correct, yes.
The Shadow knows. Okay.
You may remember the 1994 movie starring one Alec Baldwin.
God.
But
did that come out opposite The Phantom, starring Billy Zane?
The Phantom was either 96 or 97. I think it was 96.
Jeez.
But for anyone out there that isn't familiar with the Shadow, he's like a pulp hero from the 30s, and he's like a crime fighter, and he wears like a big trench coat, and he has like a big scarf and like a fedora, and he has like a gun and beats people up. He also has psychic powers, but that's beside the point I'm trying to make.
Now, am I remembering correctly that he was sort of one of the influences of Batman, like to Bill Finger and Bob Kane?
And his costume is he has like a big trench coat, and he sometimes has the collar popped up.
Right.
And then, like I said, he has a fedora, and then he has like a big scarf that he has wrapped around his face.
Okay.
And it's wrapped around like right below his nose. So it covers up his mouth and his chin. And then the top of his head is covered up by the hat. So there's only this one strip in the middle of his head from his nose to his forehead that you can actually see of his face.
That's fun.
And that's the same section of head that Ambrose's like broken head exists in now. So for whatever reason, I don't know why my brain pulled it, but I saw that and went, oh, just like the Shadow.
Also, the Shadow was the inspiration for the neighbor Wilson on Home Improvement.
Sure was. But anyway, but yeah, basically, like I said, everyone has the chance to ask Ambrose what the deal is. And how I mentioned earlier that that mine, the neodymium mine, that was mentioned in passing, this is when it gets brought up now, because Ambrose admits that he is a spy sent here by Weyland-Yutani.
Yes.
Because the United Americas. Yeah, the United Americas like brought the spinners here to do this, and they made the mistake of succeeding at their task.
Right.
Because now the UA has proved that they can do this shit without Weyland-Yutani, and on top of that, they got a neodymium mine out of it. And so they, UA is like, we can fucking do this without Wei-Yu. We don't need them anymore. And Wei-Yu is like, oh, and so So they fucking put Ambrose in as a spy, and
once Ambrose told him the operation is going to be a success, they were like, well, we better put a fucking bioweapon on the Heraclides.
So what they did was they sent the Heraclides over there, the Heraclides, sorry, and they put a Xenomorph on board so that when it lands, the Xenomorph will kill everyone.
Yep. So,
and I gotta say, man, I fucking loved that plot twist. The plot twist of it being the reason why they're all getting killed is because they succeeded at their assigned task. I was like, damn, that's actually a pretty clever idea. I like that.
Yeah, man, that's fucking Weyland-Yutani. Not only that, okay. So the spinners succeeded in this terraforming operation for the United Americas, right? Weyland-Yutani has also successfully succeeded in weaponizing the Xenomorph, right? When last we saw it, we hadn't seen the
2 years prior in canon, only 2 years prior.
Shit didn't go well, right? Like they lost Alpha, arguably, and they lost
Mhm.
the colony, or not the colony, the Epsilon station. So they clearly had xenomorphs somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what year it took place in, maybe down in the Cold Forge, right?
Hmm.
Maybe one of those novels comes in here, who knows.
Yeah, I
um
don't know.
yeah, and like even in the annual we didn't see a successful test, right? They didn't successfully get that specimen onto the whatever the ship was that they
I
were.
cannot.
Yeah,
I
doesn't.
cannot believe I'm about to pull this. It was called the
The
Nishimura.
Nishimura. Yeah.
I cannot
Damn.
believe I was able to remember.
Yeah, they didn't
that.
even get the xenomorph onto Nishimura Station. You know what? You know what I can't believe is in my brain?
Mm.
Duncan fucking Fields.
Well, you know how, like, see, that is a more reasonable pull to me, because the Nishimura, the name of that was mentioned like once or twice in that one comic.
Right.
Like, the name Duncan Fields is said dozens and dozens of times in that book.
I'll tell you why Duncan Fields popped into my mind. Just a brief aside. I have been unknowing, like, without purposefully going down this path, I have found myself working for, I think it's the Ryujin Corporation in Starfield, essentially the Wayland Yutani of the Starfield universe,
All right.
specifically doing corporate espionage.
Good work.
And so I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm just playing out Alien Covenant Origins right now in Starfield.
You sure are.
And so I was like, maybe I should. I'm like, I'm not going to follow through on this, but there was like a chance for a little bit there that I was like, I should listen to that novel again just for fun.
You should not.
I should just revisit that corporate espionage cyberpunk thriller.
Hey, man,
that
if you
involved people hiding in the carcasses of animals or something.
Yeah, they were
They were synthetic animals.
They were animals that were like they're like cyborg animals, basically.
Dude, that book rules.
I would not agree with that statement. What I was going to say is, if you want to take in that information about the book, what you should do is listen to the Crew Expendable episode on it.
Yeah.
The listeners should also listen to that episode, and also they should listen to all of the other episodes too.
They're already here. We don't have to plug this hard, but you should.
I mean, I know I make that reference a couple of times per episode, and it's probably tiring to everyone else, but it is extremely funny to me to plug the show while they're listening to it.
How long is that? Because that was a long ass episode, I think.
Sure was. It was back when we were first learning how to do novels on the show, so we didn't really know what to cover or not cover, so we just kind of went for a while.
Only 2 hours? We talked about the second half of Bloodlines longer than we talked about Alien Covenant Origins.
Are you saying we should do a part 2 and cover it in detail and more depth?
Let's do it book club style and do an hour per chapter. All right. Let's move on. So
yeah, we're getting very close to the end of this issue.
Yeah.
So anyone out there that's seen The Mist, or I guess read The Mist, remembers very well, I believe her name was Mrs. Carmody, the crazy like religious lady that was like forming a cult in the gas station.
Carrie's
and like
mom.
tried to kill Thomas Jane's son and all that. Well, turns out this comic has one of those. The character's name, I believe, is Gertrude.
Of course it is. Yeah, it's Gertrude, right?
And she's the one that's all like, look, you're the one, Jane, that brought us all here. We're all here under the guise of, anti... Absolutely not. We're not going anywhere. We're staying here. We're not going to believe that lying synth's words.
We're not leaving our garden.
Yeah. And Jane's like, if you stay here, you will all get murdered by aliens. And they're like, no, we will not. The mother will divinely protect us and prevent us. from getting killed.
Gertrude says to Jane, "It pains me to say it, but maybe you never belonged here with us after all."
Yep.
Damn, dude.
So the rest of them leave. The rest of them leave.
Hold on, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's 12
8,
of them.
9, 10, 11, 12 of them staying behind.
I made sure to count when I was taking my notes.
Sitting in a circle in chairs. Okay, they're not like crisscross applesauce or anything.
Yeah, and it's like Gertrude with 11 other people, and like, Jane and Leo and I believe Simon like aren't with them. They've all already left. And so it's all these crazy Mrs. Carmody ass MFs that all stayed behind to like pray in the church.
Right. Yeah, it's Jane, Leo, Simon, and the old man who saved Simon in the woods, who I mistakenly thought looked like Ron Glass. They're the ones.
They all left because, as you said, this takes place as the text box says later.
Right.
And
so
they're all sitting in a circle praying, singing songs to Mother and all that.
And I believe Tabby is freaking out. She can hear. She's like, I heard something outside. We shouldn't have stayed.
I believe it's Tabby, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Tabby starts regretting staying behind because she starts hearing noises. And she's like, we should have gone. We're all going to die. And Gertrude is like, bitch, shut up.
Shut up and sing.
And so she insists that they all start singing. And while they're singing, a whole bunch of xenomorphs drop down from the rafters and proceed to wholesale slaughter, tear all 12 of these people to fucking shreds.
Where's your mother now, Gertrude? Right?
And like I said, all these xenomorphs are killing these like dozen people. They just get torn apart. And then it cuts to the group that left, Jane and all them.
Okay. There is another person. I think that Tabby is here. It makes more sense that this fourth person with them is Tabby with the blonde hair who's also singing.
Well, I'm pretty sure Tabby was the one there with the 12 of them singing.
I don't think so. We'll find out in the next issue. These people aren't named. I don't think that the one who was freaking out was Tabby, because I think Tabby is now with the survival group.
I'll say this much. I had thought the reason why I was confident it was Tabby, I thought they literally said her name during that scene, but I'm also not looking at the issue, so maybe I just remembered it wrong.
We got it. Let's correct this. So the person freaking out in the song circle is Madeline.
Okay.
Different character. This is our introduction to Madeline, and
it sure is
her unceremonious exit.
But, like outside of just like silent group shots, this is the first time she really shows up. Yeah.
So what I really like this, where they're in the church and they're singing this song, right? In my soul, find the peace that shall never end. In my eyes, everlasting light. It goes on. They get slaughtered. We cut to the people who left. Jane and her crew walking across this bridge, and Tabitha, confirmed, is singing the exact same like him, right?
And it's so funny because they're walking across this long rickety wooden bridge that like connects like two cliff faces, because apparently this church is like right next to the cliff. And while these people are walking away and crossing this bridge, they're close enough to the church that they hear all of these people screaming while they get murdered. Like they're still close enough to hear all of this happen. And they look over and there's multiple xenomorphs standing on the roof of the church, staring at them while they cross this bridge.
Yeah. I'm looking at the pages. This might be some. I see them all on the roof up there. Yeah, they must be staring at them, right? They must be looking at the church, because there's the final panel. The xenomorphs are not on the church; they're just on the rocks.
Yeah, they left.
Yeah,
but the group gets to the other side of the bridge and then pulls out some machetes and hacks down the bridge on their side so that no one can cross.
Yeah, man.
And then there is the absolutely fucking hilarious detail that made me laugh my ass off.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Jane has Ambrose's head with her.
Yeah.
but it's just like clipped onto her belt.
It's like hanging off her pants, right?
And it's so funny. I mean, of course, because I'm me, the obvious comparison I made was the new God of War games, because Kratos carries Mimir's cut off head attached to his belt, like during the game. And so she has that kind of thing going on where she's like carrying Ambrose's head, and Ambrose is like threatening her and telling her about how she's like definitely going to die or whatever.
Yes.
It doesn't fucking matter what he says, but it's just so fucking funny to me that like that one little strip, like third section of his face is just like being carried around, just like tied to someone's belt loop.
Right.
That was just so fucking funny to me.
It made me think of the sentient hat in Mario Odyssey. I don't know.
I believe his name is Cappy.
Or maybe Minish. Maybe I'm thinking of the Minish Cap. Who knows?
Minish Cap also has a sentient hat.
Right.
I am extremely upset that I cannot pull the name of the hat right now.
I believe its name is the Minish Cap.
It is not. He has an actual name because he was a wizard that got magically turned into a hat.
Eslo.
So he was not Eslo. There we go. I knew it had a Z in it.
Not to be confused with Enzo from Reboot.
But yeah, they cut down this bridge, and then Ambrose reveals that he like recognizes that Jane's not doing so hot. Like her motor skills have already declined since like last time, and she is very likely going to die or slow them down to the point where she may as well be dead.
Yeah.
And very fun note for the issue to end on, because that's how issue 3 ends.
Yes, with him saying, "How long do you expect to save these people from the perfect organism?" Right.
All right. Neal, let me ask you something.
Sure.
Do you remember a little bit ago in this episode when I mentioned that there were some comments left underneath the previous issue?
Yeah, by our buddy Metal Hellsinger and Simon.
It was Metal Clergy and Sean Lamp Monster.
Okay, Lamp Monster.
Well,
gotcha.
Well, wouldn't you know it? They're also in the comments on this issue.
Same guys.
Same two guys. Metal Clergy posts a comment and Sean Lamp Monster responds.
You need to post a comment under this with a link to this episode.
Metal Clergy says Tad, and Tad is not in quotes, it's in single quotes, like if you're quoting something inside of a quote.
Yeah, casual quotes.
He says a tad more interesting than the previous issue, semicolon. Ambrose was a decent twist, whereas the thing with Gertrude could have been more fleshed out. I can't wait for Johnson and LaRocca to be replaced with another creative team, though. They are both talented, but I don't care for them on this book.
Okay.
And then Sean Lamp Monster Lampa responds, I'm fine with it. Alien stories simply need doomed bastards getting wrecked with a little bit creative fighting back from the scrappy humans. This hits all those notes. I don't need anything too deep for this property, and this part made me laugh out loud, but Arc 1 was much better in my opinion. I want more of that hard-boiled ex-soldier.
Wow. Okay. Agree to disagree on that point.
Metal Clergy does not respond to Sean Lamp Monster's comment, so unfortunately that is the entirety of the comments left on the 3rd issue of Revival.
Maybe they'll be back for issue 4.
I'm hoping. I didn't look. Although, going back to what I said earlier, after I finished this issue, I was like, I think I need to keep reading. Gotta keep reading this. This comic is so good, dude.
Yeah, man. I'm enjoying this. Here's my fear. I'm gonna be candid here. I really enjoyed this half. I've enjoyed this half more than I remember enjoying this book when I read it the first time. So my fear is that it's gonna go downhill with the final 3.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit,
I don't know.
That,
I don't remember, but
I've already read the other 2 Philip Kennedy Johnson Alien arcs.
Yeah.
And both of them, I thought, didn't quite stick the landing. So I'm honestly kind of assuming this one won't either.
Yeah,
But I'm excited to give it a try because I am extremely impressed with this comic.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm glad to hear that in a strange way. Because I know you hadn't read it, and all I've been saying this whole time is it's better than the first arc, you know?
Yep. Yeah, you always framed it as being better than Bloodlines. You never actually went all the way and said it was good, like on its own merits. You were always like, in comparison to Bloodlines, it's better. And I'm like, that doesn't mean it's good, though.
Yeah, but I'm really wondering if like the next half of this is just going to get weird. Or
it might.
something.
I don't know. We'll have to find out. Like I said, I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what's going to fucking happen next.
I'm going to be real. I'm just paging through. And there are, I'm not reading spoilers. I'm not giving myself time to really register what's going on, but there are some dynamic scenes in this. There is a lot happening coming up. It looks like
literally the only thing I know about the contents of the next 3 issues is that one of them has a cover that I've always found was extremely striking. It is a Xenomorph standing on what to my brain registered as an old beat up pickup truck.
Yes.
And there is multiple arrows sticking out of it. And I always thought the idea of fighting a Xenomorph with a bow and arrow was an extremely cool idea.
Yeah.
So I remembered seeing that cover and went, ooh, shit, that looks cool. But that is literally the only thing I know about any of the content of the next 3 issues.
That's got to be something that's cropped up in another Alien book, the bow and arrow thing. Like that's got to be in Phalanx, right? I'm sure
it's in Phalanx. Yeah.
I'm sure that's in a Dark Horse book that I haven't read. You know, I missed a lot of
that one comic. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I can't remember I can't pull the name of it, but remember how ironically enough, going back to what we were just talking about, was actually in Covenant Origins. Remember how we discovered there was a Dark Horse comic where a bunch of ninjas fought a Xenomorph?
I bet there's some bow and arrow.
Yeah, maybe they had some bows. Who knows?
Gotta be, right? Yeah. So all I was gonna say is, like, you know, I read the early Dark Horse stuff, the stuff that I've talked about, you know. Mm-hmm. Outbreak and Earth War and those books.
Mm-hmm.
And I read like the early Alien versus Predator stuff, but a lot of the Alien, because those are the things that my brother had, you know, that I would for sure borrow and read, or, you know, and wound up in my comic box as well when he got older, whatever. Newt's Tale, obviously. I read Newt's Tale.
We did it for the show.
Religiously. So I missed a lot of the Dark Horse stuff in the 90s, or in the 2000s, really. Not the 90s, but like the 2000s books. Like I've said on here that I read the complete Fire and Stone when that was coming out, right?
Yeah, but that was like 2015 or something like that. Yeah.
I think it was even further back, wasn't it? Because I think Life and Death was
Life and Death might have been more like 2015, so that was probably more like 2012 or 2013.
And I read some of that. So like, as far as Dark Horse comics go, there may, you know, just to kind of touch on what we were saying earlier, there may have been ones that are very thematically similar to the stuff that Marvel has done, and I'm just unaware of it. But I'm enjoying the fuck out of this story so far. And I'm just going to say this again. If anybody knows of a Dark Horse series or a novel that touches on these not exact same themes, but on these themes of an underprepared colony, maybe this religious aspect as well, you know, just dealing with this thing and having their faith or their values shaken because they can't comprehend this monster that's descended on their peaceful colony and just screwed up everything. Like, this is a compelling story, and I would definitely want to read more Alien stories like this. So send in the recommendations. We'll get them on the docket. We'll get them on the list.
Where should they send them, Neal?
Maybe mother@crewexpendable.net is a good place.
Nice.
Fire off an email. There's also our X account, Crew Expendapod. Right?
Oh, so you're doing the plugs now. Okay.
Our Instagram account at Crew Expendable Pod and Crew Expendable on Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube.com/at Crew Expendable.
Mm-hmm.
Leave a comment.
Did you say the website?
Well, it's crewexpendable.net.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I just didn't catch if you said that or not.
Kenny, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me anywhere where I have signed up to use the internet. My handle is at CYHOBBEZ. I'm technically on Twitch, although I've never streamed and I never will, but I do technically have a Twitch account. But you can also find me there on X for now, and also on Blue Sky, all under that same handle. You can also, I keep forgetting to plug this, I also have a Letterboxd account, so you can go on there and follow me on Letterboxd as well.
Sci-Hobs. Is that how it's pronounced?
We've had this I don't know. Yeah, we had this conversation on episode 1. I never really wrote it, or I never really created it with the intention of like saying it as a word.
Right.
So if forced to, I guess it would be Sci-Hobs, but like it doesn't really have a pronunciation because it's a word I made up.
It's like that time when I said fox instead of foe because I hadn't never said the word out loud and had only seen it written.
Or like how there's a podcast I listen to and one of the hosts is like, I always say it as inventory because I learned the word by playing RPGs rather than hearing people say it out loud. Wow. So I didn't know until literally years later it's pronounced inventory.
Inventory sounds like the place where you would just invent things, right?
Yeah, sure does.
That's fun.
Invention school, baby.
I like that. You can find me on Blue Sky at Final Neal, Instagram at Final Neal Retro, twitch.tv/Final Neal, and that is Neal with an A, Neal. I do another podcast all about Mortal Kombat ancillary media, non-canon things, TV shows, movies, animated series, comic books, etc. You can find that at mkpodquest.com or search MK Podquest in your podcast app. By the way, I have played Mortal Kombat 1 and it is good.
I have not played it yet because I bought it, and then when I bought it I went, I don't think I've actually beaten 9, 10, or 11. So I installed all 4 of them and just started from the beginning. Wow. I'm like a third or half of the way through 11.
And you're gonna do Aftermath as well. Got to do Aftermath.
So yeah, I haven't gotten to MK1 yet, but I am going to get there sooner rather than later.
Nice. Kenny, it's been like 2 hours we talked about this half of the book. We must have had a lot to say.
Yeah, we started this episode planning on being quick and loose and, not wanting to take too long. And we went over movie length. Yes,
we did. But we're having fun with this one. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the back half plays out.
Mm-hmm.
So until next time, stay frosty.
Stay frosty.